Good afternoon, everyone. Chris Kugler here. So, I did a little bit of work offline I want to show you, and we'll do a little review of how I put it together. So, this will be kind of a shorter part since I won't actually be doing any legit work during this. I ended up doing this offline because I had some issues getting some of my animation stuff to work right. So, what we have is we have our, normal walking around like we have before. But now I've got a interactable that is a door that's going to animate and open and let me in, and I can close the door and reopen it, and so on and so forth. So previously I'd build a interaction interface set with a couple different implementations of it, like one for NPC dialogue, one for picking up items off the ground, save points, for stuff like that. And just in summary, the player object, or rather is it the player? Yeah, they've got a player interaction controller that checks when if we have an interaction that we are currently engaged with, and we determine that with a collider on the interaction itself, then the player can press the A button to call the interface's interact method. Now, in the case of the door, what we've got is an empty game object with a ProBuilder object, the door itself. This thing was for testing, and a trigger collider. So that when the player enters this trigger, the interaction is allowed. And with our door interaction, the only thing it itself has is the text operation to have the open and close text on the A button. But it derives from an animation interaction, which has an animator, and it has whether or not the state of the animation can reverse or not. And it just sets the trigger to play whichever animation for whichever state it's in, and toggles the state, and does a quick little yield return for the length of the clip. That's all it does. It's fairly straightforward and simple. Inversely, I've got a legacy animation one, which does a very similar thing. Does the speed is the positive value and plays it for the normal state, and then for reversal, it just times it by -1 and does the same yield return type of deal. And the door itself just has an animator component with a clip on it that I recorded using the animator window to set the rotation of the object to certain points for certain keyframes, and its own mechanism flow just goes to this empty state where nothing is happening, and once it sees the trigger for open, it plays the animation to open the door, and it waits for the trigger to close the door. And this just loops back and forth on the trigger calls for closing or opening. And inversely, if we come in and the door's already open, our code is going to know that it's not in the initial state, so it's going to call the close trigger instead of the open trigger, and we'll play the appropriate animation. And otherwise, they'll just cycle between these two states. All in all, it's fairly straightforward. But like I said, this would be a very, well, no, you know what? Let's just go ahead and do the next thing I was thinking of. This is only going to be a few minutes of a video, so I want to do I'm thinking about doing like an elevator with a switch. Now, do I have a switch model? Lever? Anything? No? Okay, apparently I don't have any models that would fit that type of thing right now. So let's go ahead and do a just make a really cheap one, since I'm probably going to end up buying a model of some sort for a lever itself. We'll go and just make a quick one with ProBuilder. So I need a new shape. There we go. I want a cube, and this is going to be a 0.5, 0.5 by 1. Yeah. And we're going to add another cube. And this guy's going to be a much smaller one. So I'm not going to anchor these to one another just yet, but I do want them, you know, kind of in position here so I can get a feel for the sizes. So let's go for a, we'll leave it at 1 length. We'll go for a 0.25 by 0.25. No, I want this to be way thinner. Let's go 0.1. Yeah, and then when I rotate here, you know, something like this, and have the animation rotate about the parent or do something like that. Yeah. Yeah, okay, that looks good. Let's go ahead and build that. There we go. Let's go ahead and anchor this up. And let's go ahead and pull this back into my level here. There we go. We got ourselves snapped to the wall. So let's bring out our Pro Builder, our Pro Grids tool. That's on. So let's bring this up a bit. Now, let's go ahead and grab our, this interaction check prefab for my collider. That's fine. Yeah, okay. And let's go ahead and do a little animation. So I want to animate just the lever handle. So bring up the animator, or rather the animation window. And let's go ahead and snap this in. Yeah, lever handle, create the animation. Where did I put the other ones? Yeah, it's under the prefabs. Yeah, so leverpull.anim. And let's add our property is going to be our transform rotation. And that should be the only one we need to affect. So let's go for a up to frame 30. And let's go ahead and set this up. Oh, that's snapped in. Why'd that snap? Oh, because oh, that's weird. All right, well, let's go ahead and add our rotation again. Kill these. Bring us back to 30. Oh boy. All right, so I need to fiddle with the pivot for a second. So let's close that out. We're not going to edit this anymore. Let's see. So our transform position is here. That does beg the question, how do we change the pivot of the mesh? Okay, so that requires some shenanigans, so we'll just do this the easy way. We'll create an artificial pivot. Oops. And our lever pivot is going to be roughly there. Our lever handle is going to come out. And when we rotate our handle, there we go. All right. I don't really mind fudging that too much. So our rotation is going to be, or our animation rather, is going to rotate the pivot and not the lever handle. So let's go ahead and delete these guys that got created. Let's add the transform rotation. Once again, we'll delete the 60 frame and we'll do a 30. And let's say we want the rotation to be down to around there is fine. It's going to look silly for... Oh. Whoops. There we go. Looks good. Let's go ahead and take a look at our, let's close this guy. Let's take a look at our lever pivot. So we want to do a very similar thing where we want to create an empty, and we want that to be our state transition default. And we're going to have two parameters. Both are triggers, and we're going to say up and down. Now our speed for the up is going to be -1 because we want it to play in reverse. And let's see, that looks good. The actual animation, we need to turn off the loop time so it stops at the last frame. And from our state, we're going to go to both. Trigger up. Down animation is going to be played when we trigger down. We're going to go from down to up when we play the trigger up, and back to down if we set trigger down. Just that easy. Now we have our object in our scene and everything's good. Let's test this out. So we'll play, come here in our scene, we're going to select our lever pivot. I got my animator. Oh. You're sitting here. Really wish this thing came with a zoom on it. It's so annoying. Oh, we'll just have to do that or something. I don't know why I switched it around, but you know, we can see inside of it now. So let's go ahead and flip up. It did nothing. Why did it do nothing? Well, in any case, let's go ahead and code this up. Oops, wait a second. I had this in the down state. Uh-oh. We're rewinding too much. Let's get back forward. Let's get my animation window out. What's the initial value supposed to be? -42. Make that a nice round number. Let's go -45 on it. I'll make that -120. Yeah, that's fine. Now, how much does I screw up by rewinding? Up, down, yeah. Yeah. Now, here's another problem though, is I've got different trigger names between these animations, even though the flow is exactly the same. I called them open and close in the door one, yeah. There's a thing called an override controller. How does this work? My initial controller is going to be the door controller. My override clip is going to be lever pull. If I understand how this works right. So that should be that it follows the exact same naming structure and state as the door animation controller, but replace the door open clip with this one, which in this case will be both of these since they're both door open. So if I go into my lever, and I'm just adding complexity here because I haven't even seen this work normally. So we'll make the controller the overridden controller, so we don't need to screw around with these trigger sets or anything. It should just work. Let's go ahead and run and see what happens. So it changed to pull at least. There's no animator attached to the lever game object. Oh yeah, that's right. That's because get component in children, which, despite its name, will actually check the current game object as well. So our door should still be good. Nothing happened. Well, my state is definitely changing. Let's switch back to the lever controller. But we already know that's not going to work necessarily because of the it's not actually animating at all, even if I set the triggers manually in the window. What is the deal? Alright, so welcome back. Quick little mishap. I'd forgotten that because when static objects can't be moved via an animator. I forgot about that. And when we create ProBuilder objects, they're automatically marked as static because they're kind of meant to be on moving things. So once I remembered that and untoggled it, it looks like our switch is working fine now. So I think that is going to be it for the moment. And maybe next time we'll take a look at wiring our switch up to affect something. Now, I was thinking about an elevator earlier. This level isn't really conductive to that. So maybe I'll just have this control the door opening. No, you know what? I don't know. I'll give it some more thought. Anyways, as always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you guys next time.